Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the new Tier 7 Premium British Battleship imports review for you guys today, the Collingwood. And this review is made possible by the generous donations of the channel's Patreons, whose names should be appearing up on screen right about now. I am not a CC, nor affiliated or supported by Wargaming in any way, shape, or form. The generous donations from these Patreons make these reviews possible. If you wish to support the channel, Patreon is the best place to do that besides just watching the videos and streams. Alright, so the Collingwood. This is a pretty odd ship. I have played it a little bit before. We played a couple of games on it on stream last week. And it is, well, first off, despite being based on a Nelson-class battleship, it is not a real still historical ship. Also, by the way, as usual, art department and modeling guys. Beautiful model, by the way. And look at all this, all the little details and stuff. Those guys always do their job. They deserve their paychecks. But anyway, yeah, this is not a real still historical ship. It is based on a Nelson class. I'm not 100% sure if this was a design or not for the Nelsons. The Nelsons were kind of a chopped up J3 N3 design. If you look at the Duncan over here, you can see where they kind of just chopped up the the design right about here, moved all of the the bridge and the machinery back here with the Nelson class, and just moved the third turret to the front and turned it around. So yeah, you see how that's kind of just a shortened G3 J3 design. All right, but the Collingwood anyway. So yeah, it's weird. It looks a little odd, missing that third gun from each turret. But we're going to go ahead and take a look at her and see if this is a worthy replacement for the Nelson, who was the Tier 7 free XP ship. Now, at the moment, the only way you can get this ship is in the random bundles for the British Battlecruiser Early Access event. So they did say it will be available in the Armory at a later time. I'm assuming probably after the British Battlecruisers go live. And yeah, that's the only way you can get the ship right now, which I wouldn't really recommend unless like you get through like the first 3 bundles and it's there. Sure, Tier 7 premium ship for 3,000 doubloons is a pretty good deal. But other than that, I wouldn't recommend rushing out and getting the ship just yet, despite how good or how bad this ship is. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the ship and her stats. Alright, so let's start with the armor. And right away, Nelson owners, or those of you that have seen Nelson's armor scheme, should notice something. Nelson right here has 32mm plating. Voila. She has 32mm deck, 32mm upper deck, 32mm torpedo protection plating. The Collingwood is all 26. It's all 26. The bow's 26, bow deck's 26, main deck's 26, stern deck's 26, stern is 26, side plating, upper plating, it's all 26. Which is, with the with the way that the Nelson took damage with that 32mm plating right here, it is cause for concern. Alright, so if we take away that, though, you can see that her citadel is high and dry above the waterline. Again, very similar to the Nelson. In fact, I believe it's exactly the same. So it's 330 on the Nelson. On the Collingwood, it is 318. Wow, okay. So you got thinner armor already. And 305 there in the middle. I'm assuming that's probably a little bit chunkier on the Nelson as well. Alright, calm down, camera. 330, 356 in the middle. Wow. Okay. So thinner armor all the way around than the Nelson, but the same armor scheme as the Nelson, but again, thinner. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means that at Tier 7, those ships that were hindered by not being able to pin 32 will be able to pin you. Because, again, 32 is a less major threshold in the game. And that's normally what a lot of Tier 8 plus cruisers are trying to get their guns to pin. That's why they take IFHE. But down at tier, this is tier 7 ship. You can see tier 5 and tier 6 and tier 7 cruisers. Most of those cruisers, even with IFHE, can't pin 32 millimeters of armor. So now you have that's the economic bonuses. You have all of this that those cruisers can pin, let alone to the battleships that can overmatch 26 millimeters of armor that couldn't overmatch 32 millimeters of armor that you could angle to very easily with that there. So yes, that is not looking too good for her survivability right there. Speaking of survivability, 58,500 hit points with Nelson's 59,400. It is lighter because of the weight, and they normally base HP off of tonnage. 10% torpedo damage reduction. And for her main battery guns, you get 3x2. They are 16-inch guns, but they are at 419 millimeter 16-inch guns. They're not the 406s of the Nelson, so they are slightly bigger. They have a 26-second base reload time. They 180 in 45 seconds. Maximum dispersion with no modules of 251 meters. And a maximum range of 19.1 kilometers. The HE does a maximum damage of 6,150. You have a 47% chance of causing a fire on target per shell. And you have 70 millimeters of pin capability with the HE, so that's the non-improved HE pin. And they come out the tubes at 792 meters a second. The AP does a maximum damage of 13,000. It comes out the tubes at 747 meters a second. Now, the AP on the Collingwood is the normal battleship AP. It is not the short fuse British BB AP that the Nelson gets. Now, this does mean that these guns that are 16-inch guns at tier 7, you essentially have another Musashi situation where Musashi's at tier 9, as you can see tier 7 ships, so she can literally just overmatch them to death. And the Collingwood's tier 7 with 16-inch guns, you can see down to tier 5, which means that pretty much every battleship you see, you don't really care about their armor scheme. And the Nelson didn't either, and she had a short fuse AP. But with the normal AP, this now means that Collingwood can citadel those ships even harder through the nose, because the Nelson's AP, sure, it can overmatch the bow, but it may not make it deep enough into the armor because of that short fuse to citadel the ship. So while the Nelson could chunk the crap out of their bow, the Collingwood can go through the bow and into the citadel and pin the citadel with that normal BBAP. However, that also means that you are going to be getting a lot more overpins in this thing too, because the Nelson with cruisers and such, short fuse AP, it will detonate inside the ship rather than going all the way through because of the fuse timer. The Collingwood, that means those cruisers at tier 7 and below, which are usually some pretty thinly armored cruisers, you're going to be seeing these AP shells go straight through those cruisers, and you're going to be getting a lot more overpins than the Nelson. Okay, so that's my little spiel about the differences between the ammo types there. Also, too, just looking at this in port, with the Nelson, when you have 2 turrets available to you most of the time, you have at least 6 guns. But with the Collingwood, you only have 4 guns available to you most of the time. That turret number 3 is going to be stuck back there quite a bit. And then again, with the less thicker belt armor here, you can't really get the 3rd turret into action too much because of that. Secondary, she has 6 single-mounted 120mm guns that reload in 5 seconds, has maximum range of 5.6 seconds, maximum damage 1700, 8% chance of causing a fire on the target, 20mm of HE pin, and those come out the tubes at 749 meters a second. And then you get 6 dual-mounted 152mm guns that reload in 12 seconds, have a maximum range of 5.6 kilometers. The HE does a maximum damage of 2,150, 9% chance of causing a fire on the target, 25mm of HE pin, and those come out the tubes at 884 meters a second. And obviously, not good enough for secondary build. I would imagine, maybe not the 152s, but the 120s probably help with the AA. She does get an airstrike. She gets 2 attacking flights of the Sunderland airstrikes for sub duties. AA, and you get 24 of the single-mounted Orlikins. You get 6 of the octuple-mounted Vickers, blessed Vickers. And then the 120s are dual purpose. Okay, so the 152s are not. Okay. And A goes out to 5.2 kilometers, continuous damage of 100 and 74. The flak does burst damage of 1,260, and you get 35% sector reinforcement with the Collingwood. Alright. Maneuverability max speed 25 knots, which is pretty decent for a tier 7 battleship. 800 meter turning circle radius and a 14.8 second rudder shift time. Consumed to 14.1 kilometers base with no modules equipped. And now for her box O gimmicks. And yes, that is correct. The ship does get a reload booster. It is active for 50 seconds. You get a 25-second action time. I'm sorry, no, you get a 50% cut to the reload time of the ship. I wish it was active for 50 seconds. That'd be great. So the reload time is cut in half, and it's active for 25 seconds and reloads at 120 seconds. 4 charges of those base. You get a Hydro, surprisingly, that goes out to 4 kilometers, detects torps at 3 kilometers, is active for 100 seconds, and reloads at 120 seconds. And you get 4 heals, and these are not super heals. It's not the super heal that the Nelson gets. So you get 351 hit points back per second. It's active for 28 seconds and reloads in 60 seconds. And for the Nelson, by the way, her super heal reprints 1,425 HP per second. The Nelson is a ship that can pretty much print a new one of itself if it needs to. The Collingwood can't do that, and it has worse armor. So you have given up a lot to get this little funny button right here. So we'll see how that goes. But let me go ahead, throw a commander module build on this ship, and I'll meet you guys right back here. Alright, so with my commander build, with a standard battleship build, but with maintenance, this reduces the chance of those turrets being knocked out by 30%. And of course, those turrets are our main way of doing damage with the Collingwood, and we want those guys to stay in the fight for as long as possible. Went ahead and took Grease the Gears, which enhances the traverse speed of the turrets in case something pops up on the port side and the guns are on the starboard. Always nice to have them turning around as fast as possible. Plus, honestly, not many of these skills go well with the Collingwood at all. So, Grease the Gears. Then went with Adrenaline Rush because, of course, if you are taking additional damage, you get a faster reload out of this skill. Always nice to have. And then I would go from Adrenaline Rush down to Emergency Repair Expert, especially with the armor scheme of the ship. This gives you an extra charge of the repair party. God, what took me so long to think of what that skill's called. I'm sorry, what that consumable's called. And plus it makes it run for a little bit longer, so you get a little bit more out of your heal. Then I would go back around and then take Concealment Expert or Fire Prevention, one of those two, then come back and grab the other one. But Concealment Expert gives your ship a 10% buff to its concealment. That's always nice to have. You get to control your engagement a little bit more with that. And then Fire Prevention, of course, because it reduces the maximum number of fires on your ship by 1, and it reduces the chance of your ship catching on fire by 10%. Then finally come back around and grab Basis of Survivability. This cuts the time of module restoration, fire extinguishing, and floating recovery down by 15% across the board. It's always very nice to have. And then for the modules, I went with Main Armor's Mod 1 because, again, we want to keep those main battery turrets in the fight, and this reduces the chance of them becoming incapacitated, and it also cuts down the repair time of that as well, and increases their survivability by 50% on top of that. Then I went with Damage Con Mod 1 because fires suck, and this reduces the chances of us catching on fire by 5%, reduces the chance of flooding by 3%. Then I went with Aiming Systems Mod 1 because we have 6 guns, and every shell that misses is going to hurt quite badly, and this reduces our dispersion by 7%. Then I went with Damage Con Mod 2 because fires suck again, and this reduces the extinguishing time by another 15% for fires, another 15% for flood. So, again, really trying to build into the survivability of this ship here. So what that does, of course, is because we have the survivability expert, or battleship superintendent, we get additional charge of the repair party, and that repair party now runs for 30.8 seconds. So again, longer repair, more healing that we can get done. And then for the artillery, the main battery guns, they now have a maximum dispersion of 233 meters. They rotate in 36 seconds. And is there anything else to show you here? Nope, there is not. And for the concealment, the detection range is down to 12.7 kilometers, which is fairly nice at tier 7. And with the speed flag on, the ship now goes 26.3 knots. Alright, so I believe that is it. Yes, so we're going to go ahead, hop into battle with the Collingwood. I'll meet you guys there for a voiceover review of this ship. Alright guys, voiceover Mountbatten here. So the Collingwood, I can tell you off the bat, she's not a replacement for the Nelson. The ships play pretty differently and have different enough attributes that they're, again, pretty vastly different playstyles and different ships all in all. And of course, Nelson isn't currently available at the moment. She was removed for sale via free XP. They released her a little while ago in that auction that we had with her. And I do believe she does appear in the Santa containers at the end of the year. So those are the only ways you can get the Nelson. But the Collingwood still, in my opinion, isn't a Nelson replacement. It's not like the Congress to the Alaska. The Congress is close enough in playstyle and design to the Alaska that you can play the ships essentially the same. Congress has just been adjusted for tier 8 versus Alaska being a tier 9 super cruiser. Now, the Collingwood is completely different from the Nelson in most of her playstyles. The Nelson is pretty good at tanking because of that super heal. You know, it can completely reprint itself 3 times before it goes down. The Collingwood cannot do that. The Collingwood gives up that ability to trade off for more punchy guns. Now do keep in mind here, we're still talking about 16-inch guns, 419s versus 406s. But the 419s of the Collingwood, like we talked about in port, have that normal battleship AP. They don't have the short fuse AP. And sure enough, when I played this ship, as you can tell from the beginning of this match, when things cooperate and line up, the Collingwood has a real nasty bite with those 6 419s with that normal AP. It's incredibly easy to Citadel same tier battleships. Tier 7 battleships don't really have much of a say in whether or not they're getting chunked because of those guns. I mean, again, you can overmatch pretty much all their bow, their side armor. Well, the side armor you're going to bite into in Citadel for sure if they show you their broadside. So that's really nice there. I'm not going to try to play that down. It does feel like, again, you're in another Musashi situation where you have guns that simply don't really care about that tier's battleship's armor. And the same's true is, of course, down to tier tier 5, because you can see tier 5 ships in the Collingwood. So that's great. However, the amount of games I had where I was actually top tier in this session was none. I was always mid tier or bottom tier. Now, given that these guns are 419s, they do have the normal AP fuse time, the ship does do decently well at tier 9 games, and she does have 19 kilometers of range, so you can hang in there decently well at tier 9 with these guns. The downside is the ship's armor is terrible. It's exceptionally bad. Now, the Nelson, if you take that super heal away, her hull's not that great at tanking. That 32mm section in the middle was the only thing you had to really play with that could, save your biscuit here and there. But even then, of course, when you get up tiered to tier 9, that's, yeah, the Nelson's only saving grace was the super heal. And in the case of the Collingwood, that armor and that super heal have been removed. To now where you just have a normal battleship heal and absolutely mediocre armor by tier 7 standards and absolutely trash armor by tier 9 standards. I mean, when you see tier 8 cruisers, most of them can pin your armor without IFHE. That's not that great. So you're going to be eating pin damage from pretty much everyone's HE. You're going to be eating pin damage from every semi-large gun's AP, and you don't have any way to counteract that in the Collingwood. And what I tried to do when I was playing the Collingwood, I would try to play it behind an island and stay undetected, or have something that I could either scoot forward into in order to block the shells coming in at me, or stand away in some position where the enemy ships couldn't easily lob shells in at me. And when you're doing that, and when you're landing shells on target, the Collingwood feels like a pretty good battleship. However, the guns are frustratingly inconsistent. You'll have salvos that will vary from very good with the dispersion to incredibly frustrating for a 6-gun battleship. Now, even at tier 7, 6 guns is a pretty small number for that tier. Now we have like the Niza now, but you know, she has 15-inch guns, and of course these are 16-inch guns. They are very large guns, so I do understand why they can't be like railgun accurate, but it just feels like every time I have a perfect shot lined up, I fire and I get like dispersion that would make the old German battleship dispersion embarrassed, you know? And this is with 6 guns. But granted, you do have the reload booster. So you get a mediocre salvo, you pop the reload booster out, and you can have a nice follow-up salvo there too. And the reload booster is actually quite nice in the Collingwood's case too, because you have a reload booster that runs for a pretty long time. It's not like the, not the Issei sister ship, the Hyuga, whose reload booster is really only for one follow-up shot. You can get 3 salvos off in quick succession here with the Collingwood's reload booster, which is super nice, especially again having 16-inch guns that can pretty much overmatch whatever it is that you're seeing at tier 7 and below. That's fantastic. So when you have that opportunity, when the ship shows you their broadside, yeah, go for it. Pop that reload booster, and these shells, when they pin, they do 15,600 damage and with 1 shell. So if you land 2 shells in the Citadel, you just chunked a tier 7 battleship for 30k, which is about half their health. If you get more than 2 shells to land in Citadel, you're probably outright deleting that ship. That's how good this thing's AP is, coupled with the reload booster. And that's pretty much how the Collingwood plays. If you get in a position where you have to tank, you simply can't. And you'll see that at the end of this match. I moved back to a cap to help protect it and try to keep the enemy team back, and simply they didn't care. And most of them were the tier 7 battleships. And they were still chunking the absolute crap out of me, and it just, the ships melts, absolutely melts under concentrated fire. You don't have that super heal to print yourself a new ship to where you can essentially say, okay, you burned through one Nelson, let me print you another one to try and get through before I can, you know, obliterate all of you guys with my 16-inch guns. You can't do that in the Collingwood. So this is a battleship that can't really battleship because of her armor scheme and because of the lack of a super heal. It's kind of like a Slava and a Champagne and a Florida where it trades its armor for its good consistent guns, except that of course the guns aren't as consistent, but you do have the reload booster to back you up there all in all with the Collingwood. So it's an interesting ship. My initial impression of the ship is that it was terrible because of the armor and the guns weren't worth much. But when you can't get all 6 guns in the fight, it's pretty nice. Now, that being said, there are some situations where you will not be able to get all 6 guns in the fight because there's some ship at your side and you gotta stay steeply angled, because if you try to bring that third turret around, you're going to then give them the angle they need to get to your Citadel, and you do not have a super heal, so you cannot print a new Citadel after they eviscerate yours. So you're in a situation where you only have 4 guns. It is dreadfully painful. Because already when you only have 6 guns on a battleship, every shell that misses hurts a lot. When you only have 4 guns on a battleship, every shell that misses is like dying a little bit on the inside. And this ship, like I said, does not have consistent enough dispersion to really be okay with just 4 guns in the fight. So, from my experience with Collingwood, when everything lines up, this ship is fantastic. However, this being World of Warships, everything doesn't always line up perfectly well for you. The ships don't always sell broadside. You don't always get in tier 7 and below matches. Your dispersion isn't always kind to you. So, at the end of the day, I would give the Collingwood a 6 out of 10. In the right situation, she is fantastic. When the stars align and you have the shots, the dispersion, and the cover, this can be a fantastic battleship. And in tier 7 games, it genuinely is. It's not very hard, from my experience, to get well over 100,000 damage in this ship, and that's actually pretty darn good for a tier 7 battleship. But the second this thing gets to tier 8, sees those cruisers that don't need IFHE to pin its armor, it sees those battleships that it can overmatch. The second it gets to those tier 8 and above games, this ship is absolutely abysmal to play. And I'd much rather have Nelson, because at least I have the super heal to fall back on, along with the good HE of the Nelson to fall back on. Once you get to tier 8, and those, you can't just laugh at those ships anymore, because their armor can't be overmatched by your guns. But with the Nelson, you could load HE and burn them down. Can't really do that in the Collingwood. She does have the 47% fire chance, but it is only 6 guns at that point, so it is unfortunate. But yes, 6 out of 10 is what I would give this ship. It's slightly above average in the right situation, but for most situations, it probably won't work that well. Now, would I recommend you guys pick this up after it gets out of the random bundles and goes and sell in the armory? It depends. I don't think it's going to be a coal ship. They didn't mention that. I would imagine it's probably going to be forward doubloons. If you like the more snipery gameplay styles, sure, maybe the dispersion isn't good enough for that. But at medium range, again, if you have some cover, yeah, if you like that playstyle, it probably would be worth picking up. But if you're thinking this is a direct replacement for the Nelson, it is not. And if you're the average Joe, I would say pass. There's better tier 7 battleships to pick up than this thing. So the pros of the Collingwood being 419 millimeter guns with normal battleship AP, and sometimes dispersion. You get the reload booster for those 419s as well. The ship is, the speed's okay for a tier 7 battleship. This is right around when most battleships are unlocking the faster ships of their line, but it's decent enough to pick up. You do also get hydroacoustic search, which is a nice pickup. It's not going to be used in most situations when you're playing the ship, but if you think there's a DD around you, you can pop that and get that going, and avoid eating torpedoes, as I did in this match. But you don't really use it too much, but it does have it, so it is a plus. Other than that, I can't really think of too many pros. It's just that those guns and that reload booster are two massive pros for the ship. The cons being, of course, absolutely just coated in 26 millimeters of armor. You're going to get pinned by, again, everything and their mom in terms of HE pin, and then you can get overmatched by everything and their mom in terms of AP overmatch when you get up tiered. It's got tier 7 matchmaking, which means it's going to find itself in tier 9 games quite often, and you do not get a super heal to compensate for your absolutely just garbage armor when you get double up tiered to tier 9. So, guys, my 2 cents on the Collingwood. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you're planning on picking her up, or if you already managed to pick her up in the random bundles, what do you think of her? I certainly did not run into a single other Collingwood when I was playing her today, and that says a lot about a new ship that's been out for less than a week already, and I didn't run into any of them. So guys, again, let me know what you guys think about the Collingwood in the comments down below. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. One way to 40,000 subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you all have a wonderful Wednesday. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.